What do you say, Mick Gillispie? Let's talk Cody Bellinger. Bellinger is this Cubs team's Godzilla, right? Home Run Tuesday helps get the Cubs going against the Mets. The Northsiders with another win. And the Cubs continue to prove people wrong and prove themselves right. I'm Mick Gillispie with the Cubs baseball channel, Jesse Rogers from espn.com, and you know him from ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Please like, comment, and subscribe as we hang out. Great to see you, brother. How about Cody Bellinger?
Yeah, look, I thought you might say that Mike Tauchman was Godzilla. I mean, we could include him in the convo. He hit the game-winning home run last night. But Bellinger has been so good basically from day one. I thought he could get back to being the old Cody Bellinger. I just didn't think it would happen so soon. I thought it might be a longer process this season. He might need 200, 300 at-bats to institute any sort of changes he had made and getting back to feeling the way he did back in his best years. He basically did it from day one. You know, spring training, you could kind of see it coming. First week, I don't think he did much with the Cubs, and then he took off from there. He did get hurt. And again, I thought it would take a little bit longer when he came back from the injury to lock in. He locked in right away. He's been great all season. You know, Mick, he'll get MVP votes down ballot. He won't get top one or two. I mean, that's Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson territory. But he's got to be top 10, maybe even top 5 at the end of the day, depending where the Cubs finish and how he finishes. So he's been a godsend. And look, Mick, I can't stress this enough. You need left-handed slug. You need it more than you need right-handed slug. If you don't have left-handed slug, you don't have a chance. And that's why this offense wasn't very good in May. They were missing his slug specifically from that side of the plate. Now it's back. He's back, and the lineup is so balanced. They've been great since the All-Star break, especially.
Yeah, I think Bellinger's like looking at the odds like 5th right now on MVP. But he's not going to win, but he's going to get votes. And what a great signing for the Cubs. I mean, you know, go out there and give this guy a 1-year contract. You know, I was up and down on some of the guys that they brought in, but he and Dansby Swanson, you just can't argue with those moves.
No, and I was the guy that thought that, yeah, I could see the Cubs wanting Bellinger. I didn't think Bellinger would pick the Cubs for 2 reasons. One, Wrigley Field. People think it's so easy to hit there. For left-handers, it's not that easy, especially obviously in April and May. And here's a guy trying to recoup his value and get off to a good start. Picking Wrigley Field in April and May as a lefty can be brutal, but he overcame any of those problems. And the other thing is, you know, there wasn't a ton of big names in that lineup. So if you're talking about protection and balls to hit, I didn't think he'd get enough. And so I just didn't think he'd pick the Cubs, but he did. Maybe in part because they were willing to give him 500, 600 plate appearances no matter what, where if he joined an obvious contender, they might be like, look, he's sort of rebuilding his value here. We don't have the patience to let him figure it out. Well, it turns out nobody needed patience with him. He was great from day one. So, and let me tell you about Swanson. I've lived in Chicago my whole life. I don't think I've seen better defensive shortstop play ever. And remember, this team had Addison Russell and then Javi Baez at shortstop, 2 pretty good ones most recently,
right?
And some good ones, you know, going way back. So he's been amazing defensively. They both have been. It's one of the best defenses in the game. It's one reason they hung around while their bullpen and offense had to figure out some things. And once they figured out the back end of the pen and their offense came together, this is why they're on the surge they've been on.
Yeah, look, I look at Dansby Swanson and I think, first off, how good are the Braves that they could let him and Freddie Freeman go and they're still, a mega force, right? Because this guy's legit. I mean, I agree with you. I underestimated the things that are away from the plate, well, I mean, like he's going to bat like 275 and hit 20 home runs. But you can't calculate with analytics leadership and being at the right place where the ball is and that confidence that he brings every day.
Yeah, and it's just this winning attitude. Like we throw around the phrase winner, but winner to me is the guy that is going to go in this direction and bring everybody with you. And look, if you don't have the talent, you don't have the talent. But it's not going to be lack of desire that's going to hold us back. I think of Jose Ramirez that way with the Guardians. I think of Bryce Harper that way. I mean, there's players, there's many more than that, but it's just we're going in this direction. You better follow me or we're going to leave you behind. And again, it's not, the Cubs are not the most talented team. They're not the fully evolved Cubs that the front office is going to pictures in the coming years, but they're maxing out who they are right now. And I think a lot of that is Dansby Swanson.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Talking with Jesse Rogers from espn.com. I'm Mick Gillispie. This is the Cubs baseball channel. Like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, share. And remember, when we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're giving away a Ryan Sandberg autographed bobblehead and autographed baseball. And, you know, I spent time with Rhino. I traded him some polos for some baseballs way back in the day, right? So it turned out to be a pretty good trade. Let's talk David Ross, because I really feel like he's one of the best managers in the game. And you know me, Jesse, I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe that. I just really like the way that he goes about his business every day, the way that he leads the team. How tough would it be to tell Seiya Suzuki, look, you're not producing, Mike Tauchman is in, for a lot of managers and a lot of front offices. But David Ross has been in that spot. Remember, he wasn't a star player. And the bottom line is this team, to win, needs to make moves like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of August in 2015 when Joe Maddon benched Starlin Castro. I think players understand once you get to August and September, it's only about one thing: winning. That's it. You can't bench a guy, a starter, in May. That's not enough at bats. You got to give players a chance to play into their role or out of their role. And I agree with you that David Ross has done a great job. I don't know if he's among the best managers just yet. You know, this is just the first year where things are mattering. But I think he's navigated the season as well as anyone. People in Chicago, sports radio callers want him fired in May, but they didn't know what they were talking about because fans just react. They just react. You're losing, fire the manager. You're winning, extend the manager.
Right.
But you have to dive a little bit deeper. Not every team that has a positive run differential has to be 20 games over 500.
Yeah.
Things happen. Baseball is a weird sport. Look, the bullpen is completely different now than it was in April, right? Michael Fulmer was the closer. He's now the fifth inning guy. Mark Leiter Jr. was DFA'd 5 months ago. And now he's their most important eighth inning, seventh inning guy for left-handed hitters especially. So all sorts of things happen in a baseball season, especially for a team coming into the year that talent-wise was probably mid-pack, right?
Right, yeah.
And so you have to let things happen. And now he's pushing a lot of the right buttons. And you know what? If they make the playoffs, he's not going to win Manager of the Year, but he might be in the discussion for it. And that's a big change from April, May, where people were saying, get rid of him. Another example of baseball and knee-jerk reactions. They don't go hand in hand.
No.
You need to give things time and understand what's going on below the surface a little bit. There were some fluky things going on as well that maybe you could point back to David Ross in the end if you wanted to. But in general, if something is fluky, it's probably going to turn. And it did turn for the Cubs. And David Ross had a steady hand guiding the whole thing.
Yeah, when you look at how this thing went down, you talk about it May and then June going into the trade deadline, even really like a month ago, less than a month ago. The Tuesday before the trade deadline, the Angels and the Cubs were both at 13% to make the playoffs. The Angels traded away two of their best prospects, and now all they've done is lost every single game since then. The Cubs traded away some pretty good players, and we're going to find out that Nelson Velasquez is a star eventually. But you know what? The team has won, and I mean, that's what you hope for when you make a move like that. How did the Cubs turn this season around?
Well, let's also say this. The American League is a lot tougher than the National League. I mean, I've had GMs, even within a couple of weeks, just say to me, Jesse, Atlanta is the best team in the NL, and it's not even close. And the record indicates that. So the Angels were always going to have a tougher time, right? Look at what the Marlins have done lately. Look at the Diamondbacks.
Right.
Everyone's come back to the pack other than Philly and I guess San Francisco. But all these other teams have. Cincinnati's come back to the pack. But I'll tell you what, it was a little bit predictable. And I had conversations with Jed Hoyer about this as well. Those first few months, they had a positive run differential, but their record wasn't great. Okay, what's going on here? And Jed Hoyer documented it. They weren't hitting and pitching in high leverage moments. Okay, what's going on there? Are they squeezing the bat too tight? What's going on?
Right.
Are they squeezing the ball too tight? Because all these other numbers were decent. They should have been above 500, barring something fluky, which is what I mentioned before. And the thing that was fluky was these high leverage numbers. So I dove into it. I think it was Fangraphs. They measure clutch moments, high leverage moments. A lot of sites do. And here's the answer, Mick. They were so bad in high leverage moments. I'm talking about if you took 30 teams, 1 through 29 were grouped like this, okay, in clutch moments. The Cubs, who ranked 30th on offense, were 30th by, you can't even see my hand anymore. They were 30th by a mile. It was so bad, it had to be fluky. It had to be. Now, I say that 99% it had to be fluky. There's always a chance they could have gone the whole season high leverage, really bad, and you just don't know why. And who knows? Maybe David Ross was putting too much pressure on him. We'd look back in October and say, boy, that was a tight team in high leverage moments. But the real answer was it was probably so fluky it was going to come back. And now, instead of 30th here, they're like 28th here. But to get from 30 to 28 was a huge run. And you can look at the games. Just big hits after big hits after big hits. And the same thing on the mound. They were 29th in pitching, and now they're like 27th or something like that. So it came back a little bit. So that's what happened. They were so fluky bad in one area, an important area, high leverage moments, that because it's baseball, most fluky things actually come back around, and it did, and that's why they're having success in the standings now.
Right. And I also felt like, too, when Bellinger was out and when Dansby Swanson were out, there just wasn't a replacement for those guys as well. And I'm sure you mix that in with those two guys being on the IL, and things went bad fast, but they turned it around fast. And I guess as we start to get to the end of this, I got to ask you, how do they keep it going? How do they get to the postseason? How do they pull this off? After going from, it was like 13.6% chance to make the playoffs the Tuesday before the trade deadline to now they're over 50%. They've got a better than 33% chance to win the division. And they look like one of the toughest teams in the National League. They are right now.
Yeah. Okay. So confidence is sky high. So that's going to help drive this thing. The pennant race helps drive this thing, gives you a boost of adrenaline. But technically on the field, what has to happen is they've got to get their starting pitching figured out a little bit better. Taillon's turned things around. Stroman has to come back strong. Smiley's got to figure it out or find a replacement, because the way they've been scoring since the break also isn't sustainable.
Right.
It's amazing how baseball works. It was so fluky bad on offense. Now it's so fluky good. It's probably not sustainable. The weather was great for hitting at Wrigley. That's going to change a little bit as we get closer to the fall here. So as the offense comes back down to earth, and, I don't know what the bullpen's going to be, but I assume they'll stay the way they are. But this is the first time Leiter's doing this, the first time Adbert Alzolay's doing this. My point is, we know some things are going to kind of maybe come back down to earth a little bit, and that's where the starting pitching has to pick it back up, because they were strong for a long time. They're not as deep now. Stroman is going to be key when he comes off the injured list. And I have a feeling, we might see Hayden Wesneski get some starts, or Caleb Killian. And then obviously Hendricks has to be that metronome Jed Hoyer likes to talk about with him. Justin Steele just reached his career high in innings. So that's the big question mark. The most important part of your team is now a little wonky. If they find it, then I think they're in the playoffs. They may make the playoffs anyway, Mick, because the schedule really favors them, especially the last 2 weeks of this month. I think they're in first place by September 1st.
Wow, that'd be great. That'd be fine with all of us. Yeah. And what I got to tell you is that, start doing this channel and people give comments, and we love the comments. And there's a lot of really smart baseball people who are the people that follow us every day, that read all of your work, listen to you on the radio and all that. And they were saying the same thing. I read a few comments about the fact that the Cubs need to they're scoring a lot, and it's kind of masking the fact that they're giving up a lot of runs right now. My biggest problem with the entire organization is the lack of starting pitching. And I'm talking about from the lower levels all the way up. I mean, this should be the year where Ryan Jensen, who was a first-round pick not too long ago, is jumping in, or Cam Sanders, who was a starter and then they moved into the bullpen, should be jumping in. And I mean, it feels like if this team had developed one or two, maybe just one more really good pitching option, because two of the three guys that you mentioned, Wisniewski and Killian, were guys they traded for. I'm saying just if you draft and develop one more starter, I feel like this team, I'd be so much more confident with what they could do going into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, this is a work in progress, and they admitted those years they were winning, they weren't developing pitching last decade, and so it's not quite there. You thought Keegan Thompson for a moment was going to be something, starter or bullpen. That hasn't worked out. There are some guys, Ben Brown and a few other guys, Cade Horton, that are sort of still getting there. But I don't disagree with you. If along with Steele, there could have been another one, they'd probably be in a better spot. But look, the playoffs are about veteran leadership too. And that's where we got to see Kyle Hendricks, Marcus Stroman, Jamison Taillon take over. And it remains to be seen what those guys are going to bring. So I think they're a year away from getting a little bit more at the major league level. But look, it's okay to trade for Wisniewski. It's okay to trade for Caleb Killian. Let's see what they can do.
No doubt. All right, last thing, update on Marcus Stroman. Have you heard anything on him as he tries to get healthy? And then where can we catch your stuff? What do you got going on?
Well, they think that Stroman's on track. He threw a bullpen yesterday in New York. I was there. He gave a thumbs up when he came off the field.
Nice.
So they talked about missing basically one start because they have three off days coming up. They can navigate around that. So he's on track. I don't know what the date is, but it sounds like he's on track. But we won't know for sure until he really ramps it up a little bit closer to coming off the IL. I'll probably be writing a little bit more for espn.com on the Cubs as we continue. In fact, I will be. I'm going to write about Cody Bellinger's resurgence. We talked about him. If there's any Iowa Cub fans or fans in Iowa, I'm doing a book signing. Mick, you got to get my book. I'll send it to you.
You need to come down and do that in Tennessee.
Yeah, I do. It's called The Franchise, the curated history of the Chicago Cubs. I'm doing a book signing in Iowa City on Monday, August 14th. So next Monday at Prairie Lights Bookstore at 6 p.m. So I know there's a lot of Des Moines, Iowa Cubs there in the area. Come on out to Iowa City, Prairie Lights Bookstore next Monday, the 14th at 6 o'clock, doing a book signing and book reading. I'm a good writer. I don't know if I'm a good reader. We'll find out. But and then, of course, on ESPN 1000, daily reports about the Cubs and the White Sox for that matter as well.
I'll tell Cap I said hey. And again, Jesse, always great to see you. And now I'm on the mission to get you to Tennessee and to the Cubs AA affiliate with that book and a book signing. And maybe we can get you back on the show live this time, face to face, instead
Absolutely.
of just in the digital universe. And for you guys that are hanging out with us again, Ryan Sandberg Autograph Baseball, when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So we're 150 from there now in our 2 weeks of existence. And that is really a dedication to all of you guys. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Tell your friends about it. And daily content, as my partner Charlie says, every day that ends in a Y. And Jesse, you'll like to hear this. Tim Wilkin does a show on the channel as well, a great scout. And keep an eye out for a Jody Davis sighting here sometime soon. My boy Jody, going to have him on as well. But Jesse, thank you so much, brother. And let's do it again soon. Great stuff.
Mick, you've been a great friend for a long time. Good luck with everything, and including this channel, of course. Be well.